Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're excited to have you here. We're going to give people a few more moments to join just before we get started and to cover off some housekeeping while we wait. This webinar is being recorded and everyone who registered today will receive a copy. We have some time left at the end of the webinar to answer any questions that you may have, so please feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen if you think of anything that you would like answered at any point. Please feel free to type any questions in there at any time. Okay, I'll give it one more moment and then I think we're ready to go. So thank you again for joining us on today's webinar, Unlocking the Power of Hyper Collaboration in Life Science, Accelerating Breakthroughs Together. My name is Anna Wilkinson and I am one of the directors here at IdeaGen. I'm joined today by Sophie Bailes, R&D IT Capability Lead for CMC at AstraZeneca. Sophie joined AstraZeneca in 2005 and has held a number of leading roles across chemical development and product development, delivering drug projects from phase 1 to commercial submission and science and technology improvement projects. For the past 3 years, Sophie has led a digital transformation program, delivering a new digital backbone for data capture, use and reuse for 1,250 scientists across 9 development sites. Her cross-disciplinary team has deployed a number of digital solutions, integrating key software and equipment to deliver a seamless data transfer, increasing data quality and reducing time required for data handling. She has successfully led the design, build and deployment of critical software and capability build required to increase predictive science, advanced modelling and data science capabilities, which has allowed scientists to innovate in a simulated environment, thereby targeting physical experiments and reducing laboratory waste. Sophie has a PhD in separation science with research focused on modelling separation mechanisms of complex polar molecules. She is a chartered chemist with the Royal Society of Chemistry, has a diploma in business management and is a chartered manager with the CMI. Sophie is also co-chair of the AstraZeneca Pride Ireland and UK group and is passionate about driving equality both in and outside work. She lives in central Manchester with her miniature dachshund called Data, who is the most important asset in her world. So thank you, Sophie, for joining us. In today's session, we will be covering what hypercollaboration is and why it is so important to the industry today, how AstraZeneca have fostered a culture of collaboration and harnessed technology to reduce risk and improve output. And we will also spend some time looking at what tools are available today to make hypercollaboration a reality in your organisation. So without further ado, I will welcome Sophie and ask our first question, which is, what does hypercollaboration mean to you and what does this look like at AstraZeneca?
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Anna. So as you're probably aware, the pharmaceutical industry is going through a number of major changes in the last few years. The expectation on us, not only from our patients, but also on ourselves, to deliver drugs faster while retaining the same quality. So within AstraZeneca, it's really important that we drive that innovation through hypercollaboration. This is getting ideas from across our global areas, but also being able to share data from the full value chain, so right from the start of the inception and discovery of target molecules, all the way to the end of product life cycle. And within AstraZeneca as well, we have a drive for diversity. So it's not just about being able to understand the data, but actually getting different points of view from people with different backgrounds in order to make sure that we drive those data-driven insights and think things differently. So bringing design thinking into our solution development as well as our product development. So for us, it's so important that not only can we generate the vast amount of data we have, but actually being able to then share that and then find it again in the future is all part of our collaboration, our hyper collaboration. In addition, we want to bring together scientists, data scientists, AI engineers, and an IT specialist together to work in order to drive our digital transformation goals. So for us, it's so important not only to make sure that people can collaborate, and there's a number of different ways that we can do that, from innovation, project meetings, governance, as well as co-authoring of documents. So there's a number of areas in which we want to drive that collaboration. So the easy access through some digital tools, as well as being able to meet people, virtually. We have a bold ambition to be carbon negative by 2030. So we are looking to reduce travel wherever we can. That means that being able to use these types of virtual meeting spaces and sort of the virtual whiteboards for innovation and idea sharing are really vital at AstraZeneca, so we can drive that collaboration, but still retain the innovation that we're so proud of.
Thank you. And so, second question, what collaboration changes have AstraZeneca faced and how have you overcome them?
So as with all of us, over the last couple of years, we've had the challenges of hybrid working. So again, these types of virtual meeting spaces are so important so that we can connect with people all over the world. As a global company, we also have the challenge of time zones, and these sort of challenges are faced by many industries. Where we differ, especially within life sciences, is think about the location of some of these people who are collaborating. You've got scientists in laboratories, and sometimes those laboratories, or even with things we've got sterile manufacturing, they have to be fully gowned or gloved. So sometimes it's actually, the physical location that people are in does make that collaboration harder. If you're working in a fume hood and you've got gloves on, you're working with chemicals, you don't want to then come out to take a Teams call. So it's really then thinking about, okay, well, how do we use our new digital technologies to allow people to collaborate in different ways? So one of the ways that we've overcome some of those is using the type of AR glasses that people can wear whilst they're in the lab. So it means that people working in laboratories can then connect into these types of virtual meeting spaces and actually be able to see it in front of their face, rather than, whilst they can still use their hands to do whatever they're doing. This is really the most important when you're kind of working with very complex equipment, because with these types of AR glasses, you can then annotate onto them. So if you've got your specialist who may be in a different country, and then you've got a scientist in the lab who's having issues with complex equipment, it means that the specialist can actually annotate onto their vision of what they're seeing, to say, oh, actually, it's this switch here, you want to turn it in this direction. And it's quite a weird experience the first time that you're doing it, because you can see somebody almost drawing in front of your vision. But it's so useful for these types of collaborations because it means that information is passed clearly, and especially when we're doing things like tech transfer, either into our operations sites or into our kind of our external collaborators. We're just having those flat documents. These are quite complex processes and methods. So sometimes that kind of transient information is lost. So being able to collaborate through these types of virtual environments, and using headsets and smart screens, so you can actually talk to people lab to lab, means that those types of tech transfer go much smoother because you can physically see what a person is doing.
Amazing. And how are AstraZeneca using digital transformation to support growth goals?
So there's a couple of ideas I just talked about how we're using it to collaborate. But then the other way that we are using digital transformation is by access of our data. So we're generating more data than we ever have done before in life sciences. So the amount of process data and information that we can generate in development can be then really useful down the product life cycle as we go into commercial launch. So being able to then kind of being able to conform that data and use our metadata to be able to then search and understand, find that data again in the future, really helps us reduce the number of experiments that we're doing, because actually we can then start to really focus those experiments through that data science piece at the start. It means that we can then find that data again more easily in the future. So as things change within a process, it means that we can then go back to the original DOEs, the original development, in order to then understand what those process changes will mean. So again, that can reduce the amount of validation that we need to do, which can be quite time consuming. It can also then mean that we can then reuse that data over and over again. So by being able to not only collaborate, but also by being able to kind of control our data, share our data more easily, and then find our data again, it's helping us drive not only our acceleration goals to get more medicines to more patients more quickly, but also really focusing on the sustainability goals. Because the more that we reduce our lab experiments, the more that we can do in a virtual environment, the less waste we're creating. Especially where I work in development, the majority of what we do unfortunately ends up having to go in the bin because we're changing our processes, we're understanding, we're optimizing, so that material then can't be used in the future. So if we could really reduce that and use not only our modeling and simulation tools, but then our data science tools, so extracting the data from previous experiments and then using that and our mechanistic understanding of science to model what we think a process is going to do in a virtual environment, it means that we can really reduce the amount of physical experiments that we do, and therefore really reduce the amount of lab waste we're creating.
So is information management important to the life science industry?
I mean, it absolutely is. If you think about, you know, in the development environment, we're working on products that may be on the market for 10, 20, 30, even 50 years. So then having, you know, that information being able to not only be findable again, but also be interoperable, so we can use that information again in different environments, is so important. So, you know, we have things like platform sharing for our documents, but it's not just about that kind of flat knowledge. It's then how do we augment that with our sort of data as well. So where we can kind of co-write these documents, we have a number of internal and external regulatory documents that we have to produce. By being able to kind of manage that, so not only by version controlling, which is part of our compliance needs, but again, being able to find that data again. And this is where metadata comes in, because it's so important. You know, quite often, the type of experiments that scientists are doing in the labs can be then transferable, as I talked about a moment ago. But in order to do that, well, you need to know that that data is there. And this is one of the largest challenges we currently have in the pharmaceutical industry, because for years we've been very document-centric in our ways of thinking. We create the experiments, we drive the insights, and then we put it into a Word document, and we put that into a document management system. Now that's great when you're working in the project and you remember where that document is and what you've called it. But 20 years later, that knowledge may have left the company. So it's almost then going, well, how do you find that information again? So this is where that's information management, to not only make sure that you can find the data again, but actually that data might be linked to something else. So if you're creating process development for a particular product, you could search on the product type, you could search on the product name, you might be able to search on the process name, or maybe some of the materials used in there. So regardless of what type of experiment you're doing, you should be able to then go and find that information and that data, pull it into some of our data science, some of our modeling and simulation tools, and then use that for greater insights on a different product or a different process. And this is where kind of the global nature of our work creates some challenges here, because how do we drive that consistency in how we capture our metadata across all the different areas and all the different uses of these types of bits of information? And this is where technology can really help us, because it can automatically extract metadata. We're seeing more AI now being able to extract information from PDFs and from other unstructured sources, which then allows us to then search that. And as you build on top of it, the generative AI layer that we're all seeing and we're all getting excited about, it means that that accessibility is then comes out of just the data science area and then becomes more accessible for all scientists in the lab, so they can go and query things against the sort of the wealth of our knowledge across AstraZeneca.
Fascinating, really, really is. And what tools and processes do AstraZeneca have in place to maintain good information management?
So there's a number of compliance pieces that we have in place in order to maintain the documents that we create whilst we're developing drugs. But then on top of that, there's kind of a number of knowledge and information management systems that we have. So this is where it's kind of the different types of knowledge and information that you want. From a compliance point of view, we do have version controlled platforms where, you know, the documents are standard operating procedures and our guidance can be stored and then reused. We also have training environments, so it means that we're now kind of moving into more video-based training. So actually, rather than just having the flat SOP that we had for years, we're using tools that allow people to video the process that they're doing. And then be able to, so new starters or, you know, people can just come and re-watch that. And as I said before, being able to see what people are doing, it's so much easier to understand than just reading, you know, a big section of text. Some of these tools, especially in our operation environments as well, means that we can actually improve processes. So one of our big drivers is thinking about how we implement lean mentality. So where we've got repeat processes, actually having experts being able to video how they do it. We can also kind of time the target state for completing a particular exercise so that people can then understand where they are. And then if they improve, or if we find new ways of improving that process, they can add that in. So it becomes kind of iterative knowledge that's built over, you know, many years of people running these processes. But it means those improvements that are identified can then be shared to everyone. And again, everybody globally. So where we have processes in one territory, we can then take those learnings through this type of video platform and then share it into other territories. We can then use different languages on top of that, so that it means that, you know, we can actually train people in their native tongue. Again, so important to get that understanding of what the process is and how to use it. The other types of tools that we have, again, are more kind of collaborative and innovative. So, you know, these types of virtual whiteboards, and then the kind of more sort of social media aspect of it. So in order for us to share our wins, to share, you know, great projects, we do have like kind of internal social media so that we can put those types of information on there, and people can then start to see all of the really exciting things that are happening across the breadth of AstraZeneca.
Thank you for that, Sophie. It really has been very interesting. So before we move on to the next part of the session, I'd love to run a quick poll just to learn a bit more about the collaboration challenges or frustrations you're facing in your organisation. I'm going to launch a poll on the screen now, which should pop up in a second, and you can select all of the options that apply. If you have any other challenges that aren't shown, please feel free to pop them in the chat or the Q&A section as well, because we will have some time hopefully at the end to discuss all of those with Sophie. So I will just leave that up for a couple of minutes while we let everyone submit their responses, and see whether some of the areas that people have experienced frustration tie in with some of the areas that you've been discussing beforehand, Sophie. It'd be really interesting to understand whether there's any correlation between the two. I'm sure there will be.
I was slightly disappointed that I couldn't vote myself.
I know, I thought that myself. Perfect. So I think the results are in. Thank you for submitting. As you can see, we've got a real mixed bag in terms of responses there, and there's actually a clear. Have we got one? We've got quite a lot that are on par. So we've got 67%, 67%, etc. about correspondence not being stored centrally, track changes being a nightmare. So I guess that ties into the version control that you referenced earlier, Sophie. Complicated folder structures, duplication, difficult navigation, and limited permissions are all joint. So lots of different frustrations and things that are going on within our audience today, which is interesting to understand. But thank you very much for sending that. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to remind everyone that if you do have questions, as I've said, as we've gone along, I can see we've got a couple, but please pop them into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen and we will get to them at the end. So in a world where you can work from anywhere, IdeaGen helps companies securely liaise and connect with their teams and stakeholders, both internally and externally across the globe. At IdeaGen, we provide software solutions for the safe hands that protect your organizations. We help businesses securely collaborate digitally, whether that be sharing files externally without breaching firewalls, automating the filing of information, or simply working securely on sensitive documents. We essentially strive to ensure that your collaboration efforts yield tangible results. Across life science, biopharma, medtech, and healthcare, advanced technology continues to improve controlled access to a tremendous amount of information, both in and outside your organization. Precision and protection are critical since the stakes are so high, and accuracy and security are non-negotiable. Some of the situations that Sophie referenced earlier, it's crucial that things are right the first time. Information and data are the cornerstone of those initiatives, those bids, clinical trials, and patient care, but only if it is well organized, accessible, and secure. The top 3 collaboration pains that we tend to come across are mismanaged communication, inaccessible information across a business, and exposure to IP when collaborating externally. IdeaGen's collaboration suite gives you a system of processes to turn your scattered information into a hub of unified activity, collaboration, and transparency. We help you whilst protecting your most sensitive information by encouraging controlled, regulated collaboration. When innovating is such a crucial element of the process, something as simple as the collaboration method really shouldn't slow you down. And our suite of collaboration solutions help businesses to comply with industry regulations. They accelerate projects and take control of your collaboration efforts. We provide highly secure, simple to use, and efficient tools that protect organizations' sensitive data. You can also streamline your projects by bringing people, content, and actions together. And this digital platform for collaboration pulls all documents and correspondence together, allowing you to work with your internal and external teams seamlessly. So we'll dive into a little bit of each of our collaboration products and how they help businesses. Starting with IdeaGen Mail Manager, life science organizations cannot understate the importance of email management. Despite claims that email is dead over the last 15 to 20 years, email is still the most commonly used method of communication and collaboration globally. It's the main formal method of communication used in businesses like construction, for example. But every person manages it completely differently. And this creates a huge risk for businesses, including poor visibility of information and lack of accessibility, causing project delays, reworks, increasing your risk of disputes, and slowing down your productivity. In fact, staff spent over 3 hours a week searching for information in their email inboxes. So IdeaGen Mail Manager is an email add-on for Outlook designed to help project and client-based businesses take control of their emails. Mail Manager helps businesses to solve their email headache overnight by assisting them to manage, file, and retrieve critical email data within minutes. Email management is a headache for most businesses who are exposed to the risk of not being able to retrieve correspondence, especially when it's commercially sensitive. So customers invest in Mail Manager to mitigate risk, improve productivity, and empower their staff to spend more time on important activities such as patient or research work, rather than spending all of their time on administration. So with Mail Manager, users can search, file, and archive emails easily. Their reduced risk of associated disputes, penalty fees. You've got audit trail and general compliance assured. It's got enhanced email privacy controls. You can access important and relevant communication from a secure location without wasting time hunting in Outlook. It's able to integrate into your existing privacy controls and infrastructure, filing those emails to a location of your choice. It removes reliance on staff for filing critical emails. It standardizes that email management instantly, and you can reproduce all correspondence against a project or client to complete audit trails and for litigation purposes. So if we look at a project that was 10, 20 years ago, we may not have the same individuals working within the organization, but by implementing Mail Manager, you know that you've got access to all of that detail at the touch of a button, and you can adhere to your business processes and ensure you're compliant with all of your ISO standards. So we've summarised Mail Manager. Now let's move on to IdeaGen Please Review. Now, I'm sure everyone in this session today has felt the pain of collaborating with colleagues on large documents. We work with a lot of medical bid and tender writers, and there are a number of common challenges we've seen when it comes to document review and co-authoring. Teams tend to have little to no version control on their documents. They spend countless hours trying to consolidate feedback from multiple sources. They don't have the tools that they need to efficiently collaborate on these large documents, and it's almost impossible to properly audit these. So that's why we developed IdeaGen Please Review. Please Review is a document review, co-authoring and redaction software application that helps you to control and manage all aspects of the document creation and review process. Whether you are collaborating with colleagues or external parties, the access is available both ways, especially when standard collaboration tools such as Office 365 aren't fit for purpose. Please Review prevents a secure browser-based document review experience for large document reviews, technical or complex documents, or multiple reviewers. So the tool allows you to simultaneously review documents, track any comments. You have a full audit trail of all comments, changes, both accepted and rejected, so that full document integrity is maintained throughout the review process. You have a lower amount of time spent on each review by staff, and less time is actually required by the author to review and consolidate any comments and changes, meaning that generally fewer review cycles are required. And you've also got an automated review report that's generated at the end. So with Please Review, teams of all sizes can streamline their review by 65% and cut costs by 35% with a perfect audit trail. All with the added benefit of keeping sensitive data secure through thorough controls and redaction capabilities. And finally, on to Huddle. First off, why is secure collaboration so important? A recent study by ShareGate found that only 64% of IT teams manage or otherwise control the way each team works with people outside the company. So that's 36% of businesses that are effectively leaving the back door to their data wide open. If you are working like this and you're not securely managing your document sharing, you've got no way of knowing where your confidential information is, and if there has been any data leaks that have gone on. Unfortunately, for highly regulated industries, including government, life science, and construction, this opens your firm up to immense levels of risk. And IdeaGen Huddle is our secure document collaboration platform. So IdeaGen Huddle delivers a bespoke document-centric experience for organizations to use with their clients. It provides a safe and unique environment to review work. You can securely share information and collaborate efficiently. The tool brings people, content, and actions together, and it provides users with a controlled and secure external collaboration, simple file request features. All of your documents and associated communications are accessible in one central client portal. The tool keeps all versions. You can co-edit, make comments and revisions all in real time. You protect sensitive data and reduce the risk of loss or theft with government-grade security, controlling individuals' access rights and team permissions across all portals with a few clicks. And you've also got the option of a one-click file sharing feature. So we've come to the end of the session, where if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them in. Whilst we're giving the attendees a chance to ask any further questions, Sophie, I have one for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
How important do you see the role of technology in knowledge sharing and retention?
I mean, it's so important. If we look at the rate of change of technology, it's faster than we've ever seen it before, but it's also a slower rate of change than we're ever going to see in the future. So not only this is because, you know, we are, as I said, we're generating more information, we're understanding our data more. So we want to be able to then share it and conform it, use it again in different areas. So that's where technology helps us transfer our data, share information. But as I talked about early on, it's not just about those flat files anymore. It's about visual information. It's about simulations. So we can look at how molecules look in 3D, how processes work using things like digital twins. So technology is not only kind of the breakthrough that we need in order to have that greater understanding of our process. It's also the capability that we need to manage the amount of data that we're getting. You know, if you think about things like machine learning algorithms, they can look across multiple sets of data and then understand variation, and then actually help us focus on the right experiments to do. We wouldn't be able to process that amount of data in spreadsheets or, you know, in the way we used to. So actually, by being able to drive our insights through the wealth of our knowledge and data, using technology, it's really helping us not only continue to build that mechanistic understanding of our processes, but then really understanding how processes may change. And as I said, I work in development environment. if we can start to simulate what change of process might happen across the full life cycle, we can build in that operational excellence right from the start of our process, therefore allowing any changes as we transfer to different companies, different areas, or as materials change properties over time. It means that we can build those in so we continue to drive real quality medicines, and we reduce the risk of things like batch failure on our later stage in operations.
Great, thank you. And I think we've got time probably for one more question. We've got an anonymous attendee has asked, does AstraZeneca have a need to collaborate with external organisations, and how do they recommend going about that?
We absolutely do. And in fact, I've led a number of cross-pharma collaborations. So working with our peers as well as with digital technology, SME companies and academics. So this is where, the power of science is that we collaborate together. I always kind of say science is a team sport. The more knowledge that we can bring in, the more differences we can drive. It helps us drive that kind of fundamental knowledge for everybody. So this is where, within those collaborations, we can have kind of controlled environments so that we can control the knowledge and IP during the collaboration. So it means that we can share data, we can share files, we can chat to each other, even though we work in different companies. So these types of platforms are really useful during the collaboration. But what about afterwards? Actually being able to especially share some of our scientific data, it means that we can generate those insights much faster. And this is where things like cloud platforms come in really handily, as well as kind of those machine learning algorithms, because what we want to be able to protect our own IP, but actually then get the insights from the wealth of everybody's knowledge. So being able to use things like cloud platforms, we can store our data in there, surrounded by our own firewalls, so fully protected, but we can use the machine learning algorithms to look across multiple company data sets. So as an example, when we look at drug substance manufacturing, we look at the solubility within solvents. So previously, we'd have to do a number of solvent selection experiments to understand solubility at different rates. And then we do a temperature experiment afterwards to get the right solubility for a process. Now what we can do is we can put the molecule into the machine learning algorithm that looks across everybody's company's solubility data, and it can then select the best solvent or co-solvent for us, so that all we then have to do in-house is do that temperature experiment. And again, that really reduces down the amount of physical experiments we're doing. So it makes the process faster, and it really drives that quality because it's much more data, across multiple companies than we can actually have on our own. So this is where, those sorts of collaborations that we have, not only across pharma, with our academic colleagues and with other companies, are so vital to moving the science forwards.
Definitely. Really, really interesting. Thank you so much, Sophie. But unfortunately, we have run out of time for questions today. But if you do have any, please feel free to email me at anna.wilkinson@ideagen.com, and I'll be happy to get back to you ASAP. As I say, that's all we have time for today. Again, Sophie, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to everyone who has listened along. For more information about IdeaGen's collaboration suite, you can visit our website at www.ideagen.com/solutions/document-collaboration.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anna, and thank you, everyone. It's great to be here.